Hello, everyone. It's Kathy Kunz at Cool Choices. I'm delighted you could join us today for this webinar about what we do matters, people and sustainable practices. So Cool Choices is offering this webinar today in conjunction with Wisconsin Green Muslims, and we're really delighted to have this opportunity to share our expertise around behavior change with the Wisconsin Green Muslims Network. So welcome, everybody. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of background about Cool Choices, and then we'll leap into a discussion of people and sustainable practices. This is the first of two webinars we're doing with Wisconsin Green Muslims. The second webinar is on August 7th. So today I'm going to sort of set a framework of why people and behavior matter when you're thinking about sustainability, and give you some kind of high-level best practices in terms of influencing behavior. And then on August 7th, we'll dig in a little bit deeper to some behavior change strategies. So thanks again for joining us. Let's get rolling. So as a bit of background here, Cool Choices is a nonprofit. We're located in Madison, Wisconsin, and our quest is to inspire individuals, communities, and businesses to adopt sustainable practices that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we're really in the business of facilitating culture change. You know, we want reducing waste and saving energy to become the new normal in organizations. So we've spent a lot of time really studying what it takes to make behavior change happen. And one of the primary ways we facilitate behavior change is through the use of an online tool we've developed. So we will go into a company and target the workforce, or sometimes we'll partner with communities and target a broader community scale population. The way we use our platform is folks sign up, they join a team, and then over the course of 6 weeks, they get points for the sustainable things they're doing. It's like a corporate wellness program for your carbon footprint versus your waistline. And you know, folks earn points, they can win prizes. Fundamentally, what's happening under what we're doing here is that we've got a transparent way for people to see that other people are doing things, to see how actions add up across a population, and we're facilitating conversation. We're creating a space where people talk to each other about sustainability, they coach each other, and all of that becomes really influential in changing people's behaviors. So I spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about people in systems and how their actions influence overall energy use or water use or emissions. But you know, for lots of folks involved in sustainability, their focus is really much more on technology. They're thinking about, can we upgrade the lighting system to reduce our electric load? Can we transition to a fleet that is more fuel efficient? And those are all really important things, and typically we encourage folks to do the easy technology things first because behavior is a challenge. The reality is, though, as you adopt new technologies, it's really important to bring the workforce along too, so that you can transition to a really efficient heating and cooling system. But if everybody's still running space heaters under their desks, you're not going to get the savings you projected from that system. You know, there's a way that you have to talk about the human opportunities in this too. What are people doing? What choices are they making or not making that can influence our savings? And let me give you a couple of kind of examples of how important this is. First, from the building energy side. So a lot of exciting attention right now on high performance buildings, on buildings that can even get to a point where there's zero energy, where they're generating as much energy as they're using. One of the studies that really caught our attention, though, Seventh Wave, another local nonprofit that does research and education and programs around energy efficiency, did an analysis in Minnesota, and what they saw was that when you look at high performance buildings, 55% of the remaining energy usage in those buildings is plug load. So you've got this super efficient shell and an amazing HVAC system and control system, so you're not having lights on at night when no one's in the building, and you're not cooling spaces that don't need to be cooled. What's left then is what individuals are doing in their offices or cubicles. And to get to zero, you need to address what folks are doing there. It becomes really important to engage everyone. Another kind of great example of the need to engage everyone is around waste. So there are a number of entities out there now who are on a quest to become zero landfill waste. So to not be sending anything to the landfill anymore. And what we've seen working with organizations is the green teams do a terrific job up front of figuring out what to do with big waste streams. So for example, I've seen entities, we worked with a turkey processor in rural Iowa who was absolutely brilliant about thinking about all of their kind of post-production waste. So from the turkey bones they needed to dispose of to the rubber boots and other uniform pieces that people were wearing, they figured out how to not send that to the landfill. The piece that organizations really struggle with is often the employee cafeteria or the waste coming from people's workstations. And to get to zero landfill, you need everybody doing the right thing all the time in the normal course of their days. And that's really where behavior change kind of becomes most critical is if you're trying to get to an aggressive goal, sooner or later, you're going to hit the point where everyone has to be part of the solution. Everybody has to be doing X, Y, and Z for us to get where we want to go. And that's when you need to really have something that's bigger than a strategy that's really starts to be a culture change. And, you know, when I think about kind of strategy versus culture, I always think about Peter Drucker's observation from the corporate world that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And what he meant is, you know, in an organization with a clear orientation one way, so an organization that is with a really strong culture of risk aversion. We don't do things that jeopardize our activities ever. To say, oh, we're going to set up a team that's the new innovation team and they're going to get us to innovate is kind of absurd. They're not going to change. They're not going to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish as innovators if that culture remains a culture where no risk is tolerated. And it's a similar thing with sustainability. You can get to a certain point with a small green team that's doing things all on their own. But if you want to transform things, you've got to be part of the culture. You've got to engage everyone. And I always think one of our past partners, Morgan at Menasha, I always think put this so well. He talked about how at the end of our work with them, they had an entire employee population moving in the same direction. Everybody understood why Menasha was trying to save energy and how they were part of that solution. They understood the water goals, the recycling goals. They were all excited to think about how their own jobs influenced those bigger objectives. The culture had changed. They were all moving in the same direction. Whether you're promoting sustainability in your neighborhood, at your faith community, at work, ultimately where you want to be is in that culture change place. And let me give you kind of a couple of examples of what maybe is possible there, and then we'll talk about some broad strategies for getting there. So in the office, I talked about Seventh Wave's research saying 55% of energy usage in a high-performance building is plug load. One of the other things they found is that workstations, modern workstations in offices, consume about as much electricity as a residential refrigerator. So if you can picture, a big office building floor of hundreds of cubicles, that's like hundreds of refrigerators running there. And some of that energy usage, a significant piece, is increasingly folks have 2, sometimes 3 monitors on their desk, and it's not that unusual to see, like we see in this picture, monitors completely on and no person there looking at them. And so, it's a perfect example of really simple behavior change that can reduce energy usage in the building. Another always good example of how individuals affect consumption is idling vehicles. If you've got fleet operations and your vehicles are routinely idling in your own lot, in your customer's lot, kind of multiple places, you're just burning money. And when you engage people around that, you can start to create a culture where that's not what you're doing, where you're not burning money. And it's important here to think about how when you're doing things like when your employees, when your customers, when your investors see you burning money, idling vehicles, propping open doors so that conditioned air just floats out in the universe, whether it's, you're heating the interior space and that's escaping, or you're cooling it. All of that says we're not really serious about sustainability. We're not that interested in accomplishing something here. But think about what you're communicating to folks. If you want that entire employee population moving in the same direction, you have to make sure you've got a really consistent message. I'm going to talk about, again, some broad strategies for doing that. The first thing, if you want people to adopt sustainable practices, the first most important thing for you to do is make it simple for them to do that. And, I always think this is a good visual of that because you've got, I think, shape spaces are just helpful. Clearly, paper fits in this bucket and not as well as bottles or cans, which fit over here. But of making it easy for people to make the right choice. Folks are really busy. There's a million things in each of our heads all the time. We're thinking about deadlines and family stuff and the work projects due and all kinds of things. And the more you can make it simple for people to do the right thing, the more they'll do the right thing. The other thing you want to do, and this is always a little bit uncomfortable, we're in the Midwest. We don't like to brag about what we're doing, but it's really important for you to be transparent about your efforts. Very often we will work with companies who've done amazing things from a sustainability perspective, but it's all a secret. They haven't really talked to their employees about what they're doing, and sometimes they'll be frustrated that the employees aren't helping more. I'm like, well, they don't know to help because you haven't told them what you're doing. You can't keep it a secret. You need to make what you're doing visible. And it's really important to make things visible because as human beings, when you don't show me what you're doing to be part of the solution, I tend to think you're part of the problem. And that's not because I'm a terrible person, because I'm a human being and we're to some extent hardwired to sort of think that way. So if you're not showing me what you're doing to be part of the solution, I'm inclined to assume the worst. Let me give you an example of this from the residential sector. So the chart on the right is from a national survey the Joyce Foundation commissioned a couple of years ago, asking people how their household energy usage compared to the neighbors. And what you see here is a whopping 9%, less than 1 in 10 of us think our usage is higher than neighbors in similar homes. Everybody else thinks they're the same or less. So this is really important because it means 9 in 10 of us think when someone's talking about the need to save energy, they're not talking to me. I'm not part of the problem. Only 1 in 10 of us think we might need to do something about our usage. Everyone else is good. This idea that it's not me, it's you. Okay, I'm not doing anything wrong. You're the one who's wasting energy. And so those messages about reducing waste don't apply to me. I'm not part of the problem. And having done this work for a while, I increasingly believe that part of our challenge around this is that so much of what each of us do to be sustainable, the decisions we make at home certainly, but even some of the decisions we make at work or in our cars, other people can't see. They're invisible to others, and so people presume they're not happening. Part of what you need to do to change things is to really think about how you make those sustainable actions visible. And probably the most important way you can do this is through positive reinforcement. We like to talk about this kind of virtuous circle that positive reinforcement creates. So we're always going to encourage you to catch people doing the right things and celebrate it. So in my example here, you see Tom recycling appropriately, and at a team meeting, a staff meeting, you call out Tom's effort. Tom, I saw last week you did this great job of taking time to sort things and recycle them appropriately, and that really contributes to our goals. Thanks so much for doing that. Okay? Just that call out recognition starts a process that's really important, because two things happen when you call out Tom as part of the solution. First, other people, in my example, Alice, hears that and thinks, I'm also a good recycler. I need to get caught doing the right thing. And so Alice steps up her game to get some recognition too. Equally important, though, when you say to the group, Tom is a good recycler, Tom has a very innate, super clear, humans across the globe feel a need to be consistent. So when you call out Tom as a good recycler, when you raise up his performance, he feels pressure to continue to earn those kudos you delivered to him. So essentially, Tom is going to be a better recycler now because you pointed out that he was a good recycler. So now you've got Alice doing more recycling, so you noticed her, and you've got Tom doing more recycling so that everyone thinks he really deserved to be called out in the first place, which now takes you to a point where you can recognize Tom and Alice and spur Jim and Dwayne to do more recycling. So you become this kind of ripple of, by rewarding what people are doing, by recognizing what people are doing, you get more people to do things. Now, the critical piece of this is that you're focusing on the positive. Okay, when you call out people for doing the wrong thing, when you shame them, they disconnect. And other people go, well, I don't want to do anything because I don't want to be the next one she calls out and shames. Okay, it's all about focusing on the positive. You want to build momentum, not destroy it. So you want to be catching people doing the right things and celebrating that in a way that inspires more people to do the right thing. In our programs, we use a lot of photos to do this. We love this sort of example where people can share a photo of themselves doing something terrific, and we can go, yay! And a bunch of other people go, well, I did something terrific, and they share a photo too. And so now we've got all this social proof that everybody in this organization is committed to recycling. And that's how you build culture. See how we're kind of tricky about that. The other piece of this that's really important to empower is to show people how their actions add up. And this is just a shot of, in our system, you know, we'll talk about how many people participated in a program, what actions they took, their cumulative dollar savings, but we'll also give them kind of a breakdown of, wow, you guys saved 30,000 gallons of gas. That's enough to fill your tank more than 2,000 times. These water savings will produce this much chocolate. You guys rock. Part of what we're trying to do is at both an individual and group level, give folks efficacy. Show them that what they do matters and that across their community, what they do adds up to something significant. We want people to feel empowered to be part of the solution. We want them to be excited to do the next thing. We want to put them essentially on a path where they are that change we all want to see in the world. With that, I am going to open things up for questions. See if you've got that kind of GoToMeeting panel there on the side. You can open the audio if it's closed. If you don't see the panel, hit the orange arrow, it'll pop open, and there'll be a spot there where you can enter questions, and we'll take a couple of those before we wrap up. I've also got my contact information there if you want to email me about something specific later. Okay, a question about, talk more about how you make it simple. I think what we're doing is already simple. This is a great question. I love chatting about how to make it simple. Because very often we'll encounter folks who say, well, it's not that hard. And it's not that hard doesn't mean that it's simple. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I got a call from a young man who had just graduated from business school. He was stepping into his family's small manufacturing business. And he reached out to me because he was really frustrated. He said, you know, I just can't believe what I'm seeing here. Our employees don't care at all about the environment. We want them to recycle, and none of them are recycling. And it seems like they're just crappy people. And so I don't know what to do, but someone said I should call you. It's like, well, I'm glad you did. So let's tell me a little bit more about the situation. And so he essentially described, you know, they've got a production line. Folks have trash bins right at their stations on the production line, and the recycling bins are 20, 30 feet away, depending on where you are on the production line, from folks' workstations. So when it's something that's recyclable, they need to take it over to the recycling bin. And you know, at this point, I'm like, wait. How come trash is right next to them, but they have to walk to the recycling? And he said, no, you're missing the point. It's only like 30 feet. It's not even that far. It's not going to kill anyone to walk over there. And I said, well, sure, it's not going to kill them, but this is manufacturing. In your world, do people get rewards for being extraordinarily productive? You know, is there a way that if I'm doing a great job on the line and getting more processed, that might earn me recognition or even financial rewards? And he's like, well, of course, you know, we want people to be productive. Like, so if I'm productive, I'm not going to recycle because that like breaks my productivity. You're making it hard for me to recycle. And you know, we talk through that, and there's a way. I always think this example is a really good one because those of us who are really committed to sustainability, sometimes minimize the effort that we have to put into things. We go, well, it's not that hard. So to take the bus to these meetings, I have to walk half a mile to the bus stop, and sometimes the bus is 10 minutes early and sometimes it's 10 minutes late, so it's kind of not a very good thing to catch the bus, but it's not that hard and other people could do it. Okay, what you're describing is kind of hard, and you're doing it because you're on, at some level, a personal quest about this. It's not realistic to believe everyone is going to have the same personal quest as you. If you want regular people who are busy, who have a million other things in their heads to do this, you have to make it simpler. I mean, my advice to the young man with the production facility was, you need to put recycling bins next to everyone. It needs to be as easy to recycle as it is to put things in the trash, and then you'll see more recycling. Why are you making it hard? Why do we say, well, if you really cared, you would do this even though it's hard? That's nonsense. How about we make it easy? So that would be my description of sort of how to think about that easy piece. Oh, good. This is a fun meeting next time. I talked a little bit earlier about kind of social norms, but I didn't get into that very much. What do I mean by that? That is a terrific segue to the second webinar, where we'll talk a lot about kind of social norms and how we create that social capital and how influential it is what other people do. I mean, the short answer here is that human beings are social creatures. We take cues constantly from other people about what we should do, how we should behave. I behave really differently at a wedding than I do at a pub where I'm watching a Packers game, or an art gallery, or a funeral. And all of those things are about the social cues around me about what's appropriate to do and not appropriate to do, what's appropriate to wear, etc. We take a ton of cues, and so a big piece of all of this, and it's underneath that kind of visibility thing, is making sure that people can see the right cues. Can they, again, when we're showcasing what people do right, we're like putting a spotlight on the cues we want people to see. Look over here at what Jim's doing. That's the behavior we want. We're spotlighting it to help people get the right cue, which is why it's so dangerous when you focus on the negative, because you're telling everyone that everyone wastes energy. You're giving them permission to waste energy. You don't want to give them the wrong cues. With that, I think we'll wrap things up for today. Again, we're going to do a second webinar on August 7th, getting into strategies in a little bit more depth. I'm delighted you could join us today. Thanks again to Huda for inviting us to do this webinar for her network, and thanks for all that all of you are doing out there in your communities to promote sustainable practices and environmental justice across our communities. Take care. Bye.